So I was just talking to someone about chemtrails, the lines overhead. It was actually in a DAX video. What is it? I'll put it in the subtitle. Blueprint. Okay, so anyway, I'm going to start over. I was just talking to someone about chemtrails, the cloudy lines overhead, and it's because we were watching a DAX video called Blueprint, and you could see the clouds overhead look like chemtrails. And he said, "What do you think those are?" And I said, "I don't really know the science of it, but that's where it gets interesting, is we don't really know." And I said, "This is just like 9/11. Nobody really knew." Well, the architects and engineers said that Tower 7 could fall. But they're saying, according to a government report, and those guys are a bunch of liars. It's a pyramid. Their certification, the top architect tells his governing board that takes care of the ones underneath, and they all just nod their head and say, "That's it, yep, we're architects and that's what we say." None of them have done an experiment. Well, except one, and he's on YouTube, and he took an actual steel beam, the same size and shape, and he tried to make a furnace out of it, lighting it on fire and wrapping it in multiple different materials that would be found in the building. And he got it really, really super hot, but not hot enough to bend. That thing is just way too big. Jet fuel doesn't burn that much hotter than car gasoline. Car gasoline is already quite hot. Most things burn much less. Most camping fuels and candles do not burn very hot compared to car gasoline. So the chemtrail, if a pilot hops into his seat and says, "I'm going to go fly," he doesn't say, "I'm part of a conspiracy and I'm going to press a button and chemtrails come out." He says that's some natural reaction related to the humidity in his jet exhaust. What does he know? That's what he's told. He doesn't jump into the seat and get a prickle under his butt and say, "I'm in a conspiracy." So as 9/11 happened, it was my birthday, September 10th. I was already through that birthday cycle and feeling really, 2001, 31 years old. I told my wife, "You're not going to believe what's on TV. It's hard to explain. Get over here. I don't want to miss a moment." A plane has just hit a tall tower in New York. These are 110 stories tall. We haven't seen something that tall. That's twice the height of something in Vancouver. And she said, "What does that mean then?" I said, "I guess planes can fly that low that they can hit a tower." And while I'm talking about it, you hear everyone saying, "Hey, look up there. Oh no." And a second plane hits the second tower. We saw that live, or within seconds, as the feed is only slightly delayed. Nobody expected this. And she said, "So is this a replay?" "No, the first plane hit. Now this is the second plane." And as the story goes on, Tower 7 enters the story. First 1 falls, then 2 falls, and then Tower 7, 1, 2, and then 7. That's the correct height, that's the correct spacing. 1, 2, 7, even got the number right. Number 7 falls. How does it fall? It wasn't hit by a plane, my wife says. We don't know. And for days, we still didn't know until you made up your own mind and said, "Somebody rigged this up. This has to be controlled demolition." From day one, it looked like controlled demolition. Why didn't the tower fall over? Why didn't at least the top half fall over and fall off? If you severed all the columns at the top, wouldn't the top somehow do something different than the rest of the building? No sign of that. Straight down. Well, as I researched it more, I'm one of the few people to express it this way. This is not only the tallest twin towers at the time they were built, tallest in the world, but it's the tallest twin towers to be controlled demolition. Not only that, it's the cleanest controlled demolition in history. Given the height of it, you would expect a lot of rubble, and that means proportionally a lot of rubble falling everywhere. We have never seen such a neat, tidy pile of rubble in history. Well, like I say, I'm the only one to express it quite that way, but Dr. Judy Wood, she took it one more step. and she is a certain kind of scientist who is the #1 world expert to make the decision on this. And she says, according to her science degrees, her knowledge, the amount of rubble doesn't add up. There seems to be a dustification, and that's all you can call it, because we don't know what went up there. We couldn't sample what was in the air. We would assume it's hot, though, because it went up, unless it's simply called up into space somehow. I mean, if aliens are in this, and it's space lasers, in addition to controlled demolition, possibly, or separately, independently, then I guess they could make a giant vacuum of any sort. A magnetic vacuum? We don't know. Science fiction will tell the rest of the tale. We think we saw controlled demolition on all three. There is nanothermite found at the site, and that's for controlled demolition because it's for severing the steel beams. Otherwise, it's impossible. You're left with the steel structure. If you somehow manage to degrade all of the concrete, the steel structure would stand. So what we believe is every single pore was cut through the concrete and steel, leaving only the facade on the outside uncut. Cut at 45 degrees. Well, when we saw the steel at the end, there was some steel cut at 45 degrees. That confirms it. It was an inside job done by humans. Still, though, maybe humans with alien help. Here's where I come in again. Ronald Raygun as a Lyra. That's from Lyra constellation of stars, specifically Vega. And yes, I am Vega, or vegan. I am of Vegas. I said, whoa, Ronald Raygun, did you say? How come nobody ever said his name was Raygun? Well, because he didn't have one. He was a cowboy with 2 regular guns in the movies. 7-Eleven, there's my name. But something more. He was raised up in a cabal, a special education from the age of a child, to be the President of the United States of America. Why don't people talk about this? It's in Wikipedia. Why? There's not very many thinking people. Today, less than 1% of us know that the third tower was not hit by a plane, but fell just the same. The government lied, but we can explain. Less than 1 in 100 Americans, I will go as far as you to say, people from the United States. That's crazy. Well, Lyra is less than 1%. Maybe we're the only actual thinking people going on up there. My birthday being September 10th is especially weird. Check the calendar and see what national days coincide. Of course, we know about Charlie Kirk. You remember the date? The date was September 10th. Ronald Raygun said in his final speech to the public, he said, Star Wars, SDI, Strategic Defense Initiative, in my name, I called it, for me, will be ready by the year 2000. And I believe we saw it tested in the year 2001. Is that crazy? Ronald Raygun, space laser, Star Wars? Well, that's exactly how they make their clues. It's linguistic and it's numeric. The numeric is called gematria. No one in the world is connected to the number 37, and there it is. That counts 3, and it's also American Sign Language 7. Then me, Elon Reeve Musk is the second. His name is 373737. Now, depending on how you consider his connection to lithium, if it's a weighted score, and lithium is super important, which it is, well, then he might score more. However, I was chemically assaulted with lithium in a mental hospital, and that was my breakthrough. I said, if you can do this to me on lithium, with lithium, a drug I didn't need, I was wrongly, falsely accused, never needed to be mentally hospitalized, then when they chose lithium, which makes you a total thick-skinned kind of slow retard, I said, you're trying to make James Holmes out of me. And my friends called me James Bond, because when I had short hair and I was weightlifting, I looked like Daniel Craig a lot. Everyone at the gym said, you look like 10 different people said, yeah, you really look like Daniel Craig. You really look like James Bond. So it really adds up for me. So this is how I put myself with a 37 connection, the same as Elon with Lithium. Because I speak out against Lithium, Risperdal, Whispers, Constuff, Halperidon, and Vega, Haldon, Halderon. Some of those are misspellings, misspeaking, but that's how we say them in jail. Hold on. It's a class other than lithium. It's a class of tranquilizers which makes you psychotic, which will turn you into a James Holmes. If you had a creative mind, you don't anymore. The world is so flat, the time ticks slow, you wonder how did everyone else get by. I get it, you're all a bunch of retards. You're literally killing time. I had an imagination, that's how I got by. Well, like Lyra are linguistically and lyrically superior. We take lysergic acid. We see the lie and believe. We want to live more, want to be more alive. Recognize it's not his story, that's the lie. It's my story, that's the one I try. Because I make that up for my success and for my children's success. Mystery, my story. His story, no more. I would teach 9/11 truth and say because of that, we won't teach any more of their bullshit. After 9/11 2001, when the film 9/11 Loose Change and Michael Moore's film Fahrenheit 9/11 came about, that's all we needed. We should have stopped paying our taxes and stopped voting until the bureaucratic liars spoke the truth. But maybe they didn't know the truth. Just because of politicians doesn't mean they're science-brained enough to look into the controlled demolition. They are governed through their job. If they spoke out against 9/11, they would be fired. Richard Gage brought about Architects and Engineers, Blueprint for the Truth. The people who signed with him to speak that yes, it's controlled demolition, no, it's not merely fires caused by jet fuel. Obviously not. There's no jet fuel on Tower 7. They risked their jobs, their careers, possibly their families, as they would lose their job by being crazy and saying that that's an inside job. What, Americans did it to Americans? Well, look at all the other atrocities. What makes an Aboriginal not an American back in the day? They live here because they don't know the name of the president. They can't speak English. Well, what are Indians today? They can come over not speaking English. They can come over without sexual reproduction parts. So that doesn't matter. Apparently we can invite aliens here too, because they might not be able to sexually reproduce with humans. 1313, that means a lot at 1313. Good connection. Not that I have anything against any kind of Indians. Sikh has an amazing war history. I wouldn't mess with them. They carry a big dagger. Makes me wonder though about the United States of America. Why wouldn't they stop you from carrying a big dagger? Not that guy, I won't even memorize his name. I'll just say the guy who killed Al Henry was a good example of a Sikh. The temple told him, go away and don't come back in 2023. You're crazy. You're a retard. I read that in one spot only. I confirmed it to be true, and I wondered why wasn't that propagated more. Muslims, or more likely fake Muslims, could be hiding machine guns under that robe, not carrying a badge. You never know. Just like that. Slaughter a school, a bunch of fake Muslims could be white power with brown skin on their face. They could go and kill the real Muslim. I don't need to propagate these crazy ideas. Someone else did it already. But I'll say this. If you were the president of a country, why wouldn't you say, no machine guns, no masks, and no clothes that could hide a machine gun? Because we all want to breathe easy and be happy. No giant daggers. You don't need them anymore. We know your war history. We know your brain's not formed. The Sikh may be the smartest of the Indians. The ones coming over now are not bringing Silk Road or Gandhi. They don't have a clue about their culture. I'm talking about the non-religious. The religious Hindu, they do. They have more than one God. Is that better? You would think so. Maybe. I've done all the religions. I like this one because it has a hand sign. Fire over earth, spark it up for your rebirth. It's the old peace sign. I woke up, I got a clue. You can save the planet, let us do what we do. We grow our own food, we got a more colorful view. Never vegan rude, what is spit in your food? Vedic means life, and life looks good on you. Breakthrough. It's the sun god too. Copernicus says the sun is the center of the universe. That's the you and I verse. If you're a poet, Laura Erica, Hugo D. Poet, Taylor Malley, and Garrett John Laporto, L-O-P-O-R-T-O, also known as Archangel Michael. Shout outs, props to you. Nobody in the world says Copernicus matches the Surya Mudra. That's the sun. Squish it. Absorb and radiate. Absorb and radiate. Every day. It works out really great. The capacitor analogy works out really great. No lithium assault, not subject for debate. That's the you and I verse. That's the sun of the center. Peace and a clue. Great clue. Nobody says it's an I and a U. Nobody says it's a 21 or a 37 or a 53. The Hindi say that's the Surya Mudra. American Sign Language speakers say you can't put a you and I on one hand at the same time. What if you tried? You'd have the sign called Humanity United. Well, maybe I don't want to unite with you. Well, maybe you're not human. You're not the humanity part of human. You got two legs. You kind of stick to yourself. That's quite a ramble, hey? 17 minutes. Well, that's 1717. I'll tell you something more. My birthday in AKE adds a 17. My BMX number plate is 17. I lived at the address 1717, and when I was in jail, I was a unit 17, and a crazy guy, right there, 1717. He said, crazy shit. Well, he arranged a spoon, a fork, a knife, plasticware around a circle in order, and I said, what are you doing? They're all going to shout at you, someone's going to smash you. You're touching all the plasticware. He says, I'm adding value, 1737. I'm adding value. You know, you're making a pattern. It doesn't make sense. No, I can't see what's there. No, I don't see what's there. And after 17 on my number, he wrote 71, so 1771. It says, I said, what are you doing? He says, it's a mirror. I said, well, I'm in here. Don't go in my room. Well, later I would get the address on Robson Street. My BMX that I raced on is a Robinson, custom made in Vancouver. Robson Street is in Vancouver. My box is 537. That's 53 and 37. 537. 1771 Robson Street. V6G 3B7. Well, the G is for God. V is for Vancouver. 3B7. B37. Is that a little bit much? My phone number, yeah, I picked that. It ended in 3737. I don't have that phone anymore. Is that too much? Tell me when it's too much, because I got more. I got more 17s. Her name was Sunshine. She was 17. I almost left my first wife in Sunshine. She can confirm that. I think that's more than enough. I realized I can't edit the beginning. I was going to cut off the beginning because I did a restart, but then the times won't add up. So, props to everyone I mentioned, plus Luke Witkowski of We Are Change, Alex Jones. We were all there in the beginning. Chris from The Patch in Victoria, John Beaumier of Whitebird. We played the 9/11 Loose Change film on a big thing. It was playing every day at The Patch, the store that was managed by Chris. John Beaumier, Whitebird, brought it to parties. Whitebird parties, and it's amazing how difficult it was to get people to watch. They say, why do you think this is interesting? Towers are falling. You don't understand. It's in the middle of New York City. This is seemingly impossible. But what is more impossible is today, coming up on the 25th anniversary of 9/11, September 11th, 2026, with all these Americans who either witnessed it firsthand or watched the news, hundreds of repetitions of this towers falling on the news. They don't know about Tower 7. Why don't they know? The repetition of twin towers. War on terror is what follows. Twin towers. Tuned in like rabbit ears, 247. That's all I can hear. That's all that got in here. Until they said, we'll tell you later if we learn anything more. They didn't even talk about the third tower, tower name number 7. I have called on President Trump to do 7 epica things. One of them is to make new United States, and it would be known by as the country which has no struggling single mothers, because that just makes sense. If you want to raise your child as new royalty, a new United States, something I'm creating with Kevin Costner, yes, Kevin Costner from Hollywood, from the movie Field of Dreams, the same Kevin Costner who was single-handedly ready to clean up the BP oil disaster. He had the chemistry, he held the patent, he even had a quantity manufactured, and he told Obama, I'm ready to go in with my own money if I have to get more manufactured, and it will be ready in 2 days. In the meantime, accept the shipment, it's already on its way. And Obama said, no, don't dump it in the ocean, don't make more, I won't accept what you sent. Simultaneously, ships from Europe were on their way in, and Obama said, don't come into our waters. We'll handle this one ourselves. Well, Trump, 7. Remember this. 7 control measures had to be bypassed for that oil pipeline to break and for it to spew. And if you count the spew in the first 7 days, it's a very interesting number. I've given you 7 things to make it epica. Contact Juju Blake, Shanna Blake, Kevin Costner. Let's see this through. I don't see why Obama should be having a president's university to further indoctrinate children when he did not properly support the breakthrough science of Kevin Costner. Trump for a 3rd term, whether it's Eric or Donald, I'm a personal friend of the Trump family. I call him new royalty, and I call it new United States. President Trump, you've got July and August only. September 1st, that plan has to be announced. You need to be teaching the 9/11 truth into high schools all over the United States. We are counting on you. This is Star Soldier, Surya 7. Tom McDonald, I'm going to be giving you a call. Adam Calhoun, we need to meet. That's Star Soldier number 1 and Star Soldier number 10.